The evolution of AR and VR, a chronological timeline, virtual reality, VR, and augmented reality, AR, have evolved through decades of innovation from early imaginative concepts to today's cutting-edge devices. Highlighting key moments, inventions, research milestones, and cultural landmarks in the history of AR and VR. Each event is in chronological order with the year and a brief explanation. Early concepts and prototypes, 16th century, 1950s. 1584, earliest augmented vision concept. Giambattista della Porta describes a primitive idea of AR in Magia Naturalis. He wrote about using a glass pane to make objects appear in different locations, or seem to be within a room. An optical illusion achieved by controlled light and reflection, this Renaissance-era trick, later popularised as the Pepper's ghost illusion in 1862, showed how manipulated images could augment reality. 1838, stereoscope invented. Sir Charles Wheatstone demonstrated stereopsis, the brain's ability to fuse two offset images into one with depth. He built the first stereoscope device using mirrors to present each eye with a slightly different picture, creating a single 3D image. This invention paved the way for all 3D display technology and can be seen as a precursor to VR headsets. 1849. Portable stereoscope. David Brewster refined the stereoscope into a handheld device. Brewster's lenticular stereoscope used lenses instead of mirrors and was the first portable 3D viewer. Throughout the 19th century, stereoscopic photographs and viewers became popular, giving people an early, immersive visual experience. 1901, augmented reality in fiction. L. Frank Baum, best known for The Wizard of Oz, imagined a form of AR in his novel, The Master Key. He wrote of a character marker, a set of electronic glasses that could overlay data onto people, revealing a person's hidden qualities. This was arguably the first mention of AR-like technology in literature, foreshadowing later HUD, head-up display, concepts. 1929, Link Trainer Flight Simulator. Edwin Link created the Link Trainer, the world's first commercial flight simulator. This mechanical simulator, blue box, reproduced the experience of flying a plane, complete with instrument readings and motion feedback. Used to train over 500,000 pilots, including military aviators, it was an early example of VR used for real-world skill training. 1935, VR in sci-fi vision. Science fiction introduced the idea of fully immersive virtual experiences. In 1935, Stanley G. Weinbaum's short story Pygmalion Spectacles described magical goggles that let the wearer experience a fictional world with 3D sight, sound, taste, smell and touch. The protagonist could interact with virtual characters, as if inside the story, an uncannily accurate prediction of VR's aim. 1939, Viewmaster brings 3D to consumers at the New York World's Fair. In 1939, the Viewmaster stereoscopic viewer was introduced. This handheld device allowed users to view 3D images on photoreels and quickly became a popular toy and educational gadget. It familiarized generations of children with simple VR-like experiences decades before computers. Bates, 1945, first head-mounted display patent. Before electronic VR existed, inventors were already imagining head-worn devices. In 1945, US inventor William Gruber, better known for the Viewmaster, filed a patent for a stereoscopic television apparatus, essentially a head-mounted stereoscopic video display. Though never built at the time, this concept was a forerunner of later VR headsets. Meet Dei Herman. 1950s, heads-up displays and multi-sensor experiences. By the mid-20th century, augmented visuals found practical use. In 1958, the US Air Force began using the first head-up display, HUD, in jet fighters, projecting targeting information onto a transparent screen in the pilot's line of sight. Around the same time, cinematographer Morton Heilig pursued immersive cinema. He envisioned an experience theatre and built the Sensorama, patented in 1962. The Sensorama was an arcade-like cabinet that combined 3D film, stereo sound, smell emitters, a vibrating seat, and wind fans to simulate a motorcycle ride through Brooklyn. Up to 4 people could sit in the Sensorama, making it arguably the first multi-sensory VR machine. Morton Heilig's Sensorama, 1950s, was an early attempt at virtual reality. It was a booth-like machine that immersed users with a 3D stereoscopic screen, stereo audio, wind in the face, vibrations, and even scent dispensers to simulate real environments. Although limited and mechanical, Sensorama demonstrated the desire to engage all senses, a goal that continues in modern VR design. The 1960s, birth of VR and AR technologies. 1961 VR headset, Telesphere mask. Morton Heilig also patented the Telesphere mask in 1960, considered the first head-mounted display. This HMD provided wearers with stereoscopic 3D images and stereo sound. Notably, it had no motion tracking. It was essentially a personal 3D movie viewer, but it set the template for future VR headsets. 1961, HeadSight and remote viewing. Engineers Com O'Brien. At Philco developed HeadSight. The first head-tracking HMD HeadSight had twin video screens and a magnetic tracking system. As the user moved their head, a remotely controlled camera moved in sync. It was designed for surveillance in dangerous situations rather than virtual worlds. Still, HeadSight pioneered motion tracking headsets, a core component of modern VR and AR. Waltz. 1965. The ultimate display concept, Ivan Sutherland. A computer graphics pioneer published a visionary essay titled The Ultimate Display. He described the future of VR as a room that a computer can control to make simulated objects indistinguishable from real ones. A chair displayed in such a room would be good enough to sit in, Sutherland's 1965 writing, imagined immersive simulation with interactivity and real-time graphics, laying the theoretical groundwork for VR and even foreshadowing the holodeck concept. 1966 military VR flight simulator. Thomas Furness of the US Air Force built the first modern flight simulator using computer-generated visuals. This Air Force system projected a virtual horizon and terrain for pilot training. It kicked off significant military funding for VR, as armed forces realized the value of virtual environments for safe training. 1968, The Sword of Damocles. In 1968, Ivan Sutherland, with Bob Sproul, built the first computer-powered VR-AR head-mounted display, nicknamed the Sword of Damocles. This intimidating device was so heavy it had to be suspended from the ceiling, literally hanging over the user's head. The headset showed simple wireframe 3D shapes, and crucially, it tracked head movements so the graphics could shift perspective as the user moved. The Sword of Damocles could be used in see-through mode, making it effectively the first augmented reality, HMD as well. While far too primitive and unwieldy for practical use, it was a landmark in interactive 3D visualization. Ivan Sutherland's 1968 Sword of Damocles. HMD is often called the first VR headset. It was a head-mounted system, seen here with an overhead support boom, that displayed simple wireframe rooms and shapes. The device tracked the user's head position, updating the perspective of the computer-generated scene in real time. Though extremely heavy and rudimentary, the Sword of Damocles demonstrated core VR concepts, immersive visuals, and head tracking, and even worked as an early AR display by overlaying graphics onto the real world. 1969. Early artificial reality experiments. Myron Kruger, a computer artist, began creating responsive computer environments. In the late 1960s, he developed projects where a person's actions, captured by cameras or sensors, would influence visuals on a screen in real time. Kruger coined the term artificial reality for these interactive experiences. For example, he enabled two people in different rooms to interact with each other's projected silhouettes in a shared digital space. Kruger's work, though using video projection and without goggles, was an early exploration of immersive, interactive worlds and would later culminate in an influential project called VideoPlace. The 1970s, laying the foundations. 1972, advances in simulation. By the early 1970s, large companies adopted VR concepts for training. In 1972, General Electric built a computerized flight simulator with a 180-degree field of view by surrounding a cockpit with multiple screens. Such developments improved realism for pilot training and demonstrated broader applications of VR beyond research labs. 1974 Kruger's VideoPlace Lab. Myron Kruger's work evolved into VideoPlace, an artificial reality laboratory established in 1974. In a dark room with large video projection screens, users' movements were tracked, and their live video silhouettes could interact with computer graphics. Uniquely, VideoPlace did not require any special gloves or goggles. It allowed multiple participants to interact in a graphical environment, a precursor to today's interactive VR installations. Kruger's VideoPlace demonstrated early concepts of virtual collaboration and body motion interaction, influencing later VR interface research. Flakrate, 1977. Aspen Movie Map. At MIT, researchers developed the Aspen Movie Map, an early example of an interactive street view environment. This system let users virtually stroll through Aspen, Colorado, using video disc footage taken from a car, switchable between summer and winter scenes. While not a real-time rendered VR, it was an important step in immersion and navigation, foreshadowing Google Street View decades later. The user could choose paths and experience a first-person perspective of a real town, highlighting the potential of virtual travel. Mike Chalky. 1979 AR in pilot helmets. In 1979, McDonnell Douglas introduced the Vital Helmet, an HMD for pilots that integrated augmented reality elements. It had head tracking and could project information and targeting graphics in front of the pilot's eyes, synchronized with where they looked. This was a direct ancestor of today's fighter jet AR helmet displays and showed how AR could enhance real-world tasks, in this case aviation, by overlaying data on a pilot's view. The 1980s, VR enters pop culture and gets a name. 1982, AR in television and VR in film. The year 1982 saw breakthroughs in both AR and VR reaching the public. On television, broadcaster Dan Wrighton introduced an augmented reality weather map, overlaying computer graphics, satellite and radar data on TV weather reports. This was the first widespread public use of AR graphics on TV, a technique still used for live news and sports. Meanwhile, Disney's film Tron, 1982, depicted characters entering a computer-generated world, and the concept of VR was seeded in popular culture. Around the same time, the US Air Force was developing the Super Cockpit project, conceptualized in the early 1980s, aiming to equip pilots with a virtual 3D environment and HUD within a flight helmet. 1984, Cyberspace in Fiction. Canadian author William Gibson published Neuromancer in 1984, a novel that popularized the term cyberspace for a networked virtual reality. Gibson described cyberspace as a consensual hallucination, a shared digital world that users jack into. His cyberpunk vision of a VR internet and concepts like avatars heavily influenced how people imagined virtual reality's future. The same year, Myron Kruger published Artificial Reality, one of the first books to discuss VR-like interactive systems from an artistic and human perspective. Then now, 1987. Virtual reality is named. The term virtual reality was officially coined and popularized by Jaron Lanier in the late 1980s. Lanier, a computer scientist and artist, founded VPL Research in 1985, the first company dedicated to VR products. By 1987, Lanier's team had developed the iconic Data Glove, a glove for hand input, and the iPhone HMD, selling these to labs and industry. Lanier's evangelism led the media to adopt virtual reality as the umbrella term for immersive simulated environments. VPL even licensed its Data Glove technology to Mattel, which made the Power Glove accessory for Nintendo in 1989. An early attempt to bring VR-like interaction to home gaming, though it failed commercially. By the late 80s, VR was an exciting new field attracting researchers, artists, and tech enthusiasts. 1989. Work hype begins. By 1989, VR was making headlines. NASA's Ames Research Center, for instance, had a virtual environment workstation project that combined an HMD with gloves for astronaut training and telerobotics. Arcades began experimenting with VR too. For example, a virtual reality arcade machine prototype was shown at a computer graphics exhibition in 1989. Meanwhile, the idea of networked VR worlds was explored in science fiction and by early hackers. The stage was set for VR to explode in the 1990s. The 1990s, VR boom emerges, and early commercialization. 1990, augmented reality term. Coined, the phrase augmented reality was introduced in 1990 by Boeing researcher Tom Cordell. While helping design an aircraft manufacturing system, Cordell proposed a heads-up see-through display that would overlay wiring schematics onto factory workers' physical boards, guiding them through complex assembly. He and colleague David Mizell described this idea as augmented reality in a 1992 paper, distinguishing it from full VR. This was a key conceptual leap. AR as a tool to overlay digital information on the real environment, enhancing human tasks. Boeing's AR prototype replaced handheld diagrams with an HMD, improving efficiency. 1990, cave immersive room concept. In the early 90s, researchers also developed room-scale VR environments. The cave automatic virtual environment, was first demonstrated in 1992 at SIGGRAPH by the University of Illinois. At Chicago's Electronic Visualization Lab, a cave is a 10x10 foot room with wall-sized projection screens and floor projection, where users wear 3D glasses inside. Multiple people can walk into a cave to experience an immersive virtual scene together. Caves provided high-resolution, shared VR without a helmet, which was valuable for design, engineering, and research. Throughout the 90s, cave systems spread to universities and companies worldwide as a compelling VR platform, despite their expense and the requirement of a dedicated room. 1991. VR arrives in arcades. A British company, Virtuality Group, introduced the first mass-produced VR arcade machines in 1991. These pod-like systems featured headsets offering stereoscopic 3D visuals, joysticks or gloves for input, and even networked play for multiplayer games. Players could turn their heads to look around virtual worlds and engage in 3D games. The Virtuality systems, with titles like Dactyl and Nightmare, gave many people their first taste of immersive VR gaming in the early 90s. This demonstrated growing consumer interest, albeit the technology was still crude and expensive. Item 1992, VR in cinema and AR in the lab. VR gained further pop culture exposure with the 1992 film The Lawnmower Man, which portrayed a scientist using VR to boost intelligence and showed off fanciful CGI cyberspace scenes. The same year saw a true AR breakthrough in a lab, Virtual Fixtures, an AR system by Louis Rosenberg at the US Air Force Research Lab. Virtual Fixtures used a half-silvered mirror display and exoskeleton interface to overlay sensory guidance, like virtual templates and cues, onto a user's view when performing tasks. In controlled tests, this AR assistant significantly improved human performance on manual tasks. It was one of the first functional AR prototypes demonstrating real benefits, hinting at AR's potential in skill training and telerobotics. 1992, first augmented reality conference. As interest grew, 1992 also marked the first academic workshop on augmented reality, held in Cambridge, USA, and the term augmented reality began appearing in research circles. Meanwhile, the reality-virtuality continuum was formalized in 1994 by Paul Milgram and Fumio Kishino, providing a theoretical framework unifying AR, mixed reality, and VR on a spectrum from the real world to fully virtual environments. 1993, Sega VR and AR in performance. Sensing the VR buzz, Sega announced the Sega VR headset for its Sega Genesis console in 1993. The prototype featured head tracking and LCD screens promising affordable VR gaming. However, due to technical issues and concerns about user safety, the consumer Sega VR headset never made it to market. Only arcade versions appeared. Also in 1993, Australian artist Judy Martin staged Dancing in Cyberspace, the first known AR theatre performance. In this show, acrobats on stage interacted with virtual objects projected around them. It was an early example of AR in entertainment, merging live performance with computer graphics. 1995, consumer VR's false start Virtual Boy. In 1995, Nintendo took a bold step by releasing the Virtual Boy, the first home VR game console. The tabletop device had a stereoscopic display with red LED graphics and gave a 3D effect for games. However, it was monochrome, had no true head tracking, and caused discomfort for many users. Virtual Boy was a commercial failure and was discontinued within a year. It highlighted the challenges of VR technology at the time, cooled consumer enthusiasm until improvements arrived years later. 1995. Early AR tracking, cybercode. By the mid-90s, researchers were finding ways to anchor virtual objects in the real world. A notable example was cybercode, circa 1995, which used 2D barcode-like markers that could be recognized by a computer vision system. By detecting these markers via a camera, a system could determine their position and orientation in real time, allowing 3D graphics to be overlaid in the correct spot. This marker-based tracking, achievable even with low-cost cameras, became the foundation for many later AR applications, from industrial uses to the first smartphone AR apps. 1997 AR goes mobile, the Turing machine. In 1997, Stephen Feiner and colleagues at Columbia University unveiled the AR Turing machine, an early mobile augmented reality system. It consisted of a wearable computer in a backpack, an HMD for see-through overlays, GPS for positioning, and a handheld tablet interface. The Turing machine allowed a user walking around campus to see AR labels and virtual annotations aligned with buildings and points of interest. Though heavy and bulky, it was a landmark in mobile AR research, showing the promise of location-based information overlay. 1998, AR in sports broadcasting. An iconic use of AR debuted in 1998 for American football TV broadcasts, the virtual first down line. SportVision, a media tech company, developed a system to superimpose a yellow line on the football field to mark the line a team must cross for a first down. The line convincingly stayed painted on the field on viewers' screens, thanks to sensors and video processing. This AR graphic was a hit. It enhanced viewers' understanding of the game and has since become standard in football and other sports telecasts, for example, hockey puck trails, baseball strike zones. It showcased AR's value in live events for guiding audiences. 1999, The Matrix and the Metaverse. The film The Matrix, 1999, captivated audiences worldwide with its depiction of a vast simulated reality, indistinguishable from the real world. Its success brought the philosophical concepts of VR to the mainstream and inspired a new wave of interest in virtual worlds. In literature, Neil Stephenson's earlier novel Snow Crash, 1992, had introduced the term metaverse for a 3D virtual world shared on the internet, which by the late 1990s was influencing real tech. Early virtual social worlds were being built by this time. The Matrix's imagery of plugging into a virtual existence became a cultural reference point for VR's potential and dangers. 1999, military and NASA embrace AR. By the end of the 90s, augmented reality had serious government R&D investment. In 1999, the US Naval Research Lab developed one of the first outdoor AR systems for soldiers, known as BARS, Battlefield Augmented Reality System. It equipped soldiers with a see-through headset and mobile computer to overlay tactical information on their view, improving navigation, target spotting, and situational awareness on the battlefield. Similarly, NASA incorporated AR into a test flight. Pilots of the experimental X-38 spacecraft used an AR display for overlaying waypoints and data on their windshield during flight in 1999. These projects proved AR's potential in high-stakes applications where real-time data overlay can aid decision-making. 1999. R-Toolkit released 1999 also saw the release of R-Toolkit, an open-source software library that made it much easier for developers to create AR applications created by Hirokazu Kato. R-Toolkit used computer vision to detect fiduciary markers and calculate camera position, enabling virtual objects to stick onto real-world images on screen. Because it was free and relatively simple, R-Toolkit spread widely in the AR research and hobbyist community, jump-starting countless AR projects in the 2000s. By the 2000s, from labs to early industry and mobile AR, 2000 AR Quake and wearable AR. By 2000, AR was leaving the lab in experimental ways. A team in Australia created AR Quake, An outdoor AR version of the video game Quake players wore a backpack PC, an HMD, a GPS and a toy gun to battle virtual monsters superimposed on real buildings and streets. The entire setup weighed 16 kilograms, 35 pounds. Hardly convenient, but it was a pioneering AR game in a real environment. That same year, Steve Mann, a Canadian researcher known as the father of wearable computing, developed the iTap, a wearable device that acted as both camera and display over the user's eye, overlaying digital information onto the user's view. iTap, essentially an early AR smart glass, continuously mediated the visual reality with computer graphics. These efforts showed the possibilities of AR gaming and always-on informational overlays, even though hardware needed to catch up. Until 2003, early camera gaming, Sony iToy. Console gaming dipped a toe into AR-like experiences with Sony's iToy for PlayStation 2 in 2003. The iToy was a USB camera that sat atop your TV and put the player's live video into simple games players could physically move to hit virtual objects on screen, essentially using their body as a controller. While not true AR overlay, it was an early example of blending camera feeds with gameplay. iToy's modest success and its successor, the PlayStation Eye camera in 2007, introduced the idea of interactive, augmented video to millions of console owners. Mid-2000s VR's quiet period. During the early 2000s, high-end VR continued in specialized domains, military flight simulators, automotive design, using cave systems for prototyping, and academic research, but consumer VR had largely fizzled after the 90s hype. However, the groundwork was still being laid. Improved graphics, motion tracking, and display technologies were emerging from related industries. In 2006, Nintendo's Wii, with motion controllers and 3D graphics, became a huge hit, showing people's appetite for interactive, motion-based gaming, a positive sign for VR's future appeal. 2007 Google Street View and virtual tourism. In 2007, Google launched Street View in Maps, stitching panoramic real-world photos to let users virtually explore cities from a first-person perspective. This wasn't AR or real-time VR, but it popularized the idea of immersive mapping. And by 2010, Google even added stereoscopic 3D mode to Street View. For a VR-like effect, Street View made the concept of a virtual digital twin of the real-world mainstream. Marketing. 2007-2009, mobile AR on smartphones. The late 2000s saw the rise of smartphones with cameras, GPS and compasses, a perfect platform for location-based AR. In 2008, an app called Wikitude, launched for the G1 Android phone. Wikitude was an AR travel guide that overlaid information about landmarks onto the phone's camera view. Soon after, in 2009, the company Layer introduced the Layer AR browser, which allowed users to see nearby businesses, metro stations, and other points of interest tagged in AR on their phone screens. These were among the first consumer AR apps, bringing AR out of labs and into everyday mobile use. By pointing your phone around, you could see floating labels for the world around you. While rudimentary, they proved the feasibility of AR for navigation and tourism. 2009 AR on the web. In 2009, developers also brought AR to web browsers. The FLAR toolkit, a Flash adaptation of our toolkit, was released, enabling marker-based AR experiences through a simple webcam and Adobe Flash in the browser. Around the same time, Georgia Tech released Argon, an experimental AR browser that leveraged web technologies, initially built on the iPhone in 2009. These efforts were the precursor to today's WebXR standards, pointing towards an interoperable AR/VR on the web without special apps. 2010, the Oculus Kickstarter era begins. After a long lull, VR was about to roar back. In 2010, a young enthusiast named Palmer Luckey built an impressive DIY VR headset prototype with a wide field of view, 90 degrees, and demonstrated it at a convention. Though it was bulky and required a counterweight, it solved some old VR problems, like low latency and decent immersion, and reignited hope for VR. In 2012, Luckey launched a crowdfunding campaign for the Oculus Rift VR headset on Kickstarter. The campaign blew past its goal, raising over $2.4 million in days, boosted by support from gaming legends like John Carmack and Gabe Newell. The Oculus Rift development kits gave developers and early adopters a taste of modern VR with improved head tracking and a reasonable price. This effectively started the VR renaissance of the 2010 ES. 2012 Google Glass and the return of AR glasses. The same year, Google revealed Project Glass, which became the Google Glass wearable in 2013. Google Glass was a lightweight smart glasses device with a small see-through display above the eye, capable of hands-free photos, messaging, and AR overlays, like directions or notifications in your field of view. It was a bold attempt to bring AR to consumers, and while the 2013 Explorer edition of Google Glass saw limited adoption and raised privacy concerns due to its camera, it marked the first high-profile AR eyewear of the modern era. Google Glass demonstrated the appeal of ubiquitous AR information, influencing later enterprise AR headsets. 2013, AR for industrial use. By the mid-2010s, companies were actively exploring AR for practical applications. For example, in 2013, Volkswagen began using Augmented Reality service manuals, a tablet app that, when pointed at a car engine, would overlay labels and maintenance instructions on the mechanic's view. This sort of guided AR manual helped technicians see hidden parts and get step-by-step instructions in context. Enterprise and industrial AR became a growing niche, promising efficiency and training benefits for manufacturing, maintenance, and education. 2014. Facebook bets on VR. Oculus acquisition. The VR resurgence gained huge validation in 2014 when Facebook acquired Oculus VR for $2 billion. Facebook's CEO Mark Zuckerberg saw social and interactive potential in VR and essentially set off a race among tech giants in the AR/VR space. That same year, other major players jumped in. Sony announced it was working on Project Morpheus, a VR headset for PlayStation 4, and Google released Cardboard, an ultra-low-cost VR viewer made of cardboard that used your smartphone as the display and sensors. Also in 2014, Samsung introduced the Gear VR, a headset shell for Galaxy phones, developed with Oculus tech. These events signaled that VR was not only back, but on the cusp of mainstream, with heavyweights investing in content and hardware. Daniel 2015, HoloLens and the dawn of mixed reality. In early 2015, Microsoft revealed the HoloLens, a self-contained AR headset running Windows 10. HoloLens used transparent lenses to overlay realistic 3D holograms onto the real environment and featured advanced sensors for spatial mapping and gesture input. As the first fully untethered mixed reality headset, it was a breakthrough in AR technology, though initially targeted at developers and enterprise due to its high cost. HoloLens kicked off a new category of spatial computing devices that blend physical and virtual worlds. 2015 also saw the release of Qualcomm's Vuforia AR SDK for mobile and the first wave of modern AR development tools, making it easier to create AR apps. 2016. The VR consumer breakthrough. 2016 was a landmark year, often dubbed Year One, of consumer VR. 3 major high-end VR headsets launched commercially: the Oculus Rift CV1, the HTC Vive, and Sony PlayStation VR. The Rift and Vive for PCs and PSVR for PlayStation 4 each offered full 3D head tracking and handheld controllers, enabling immersive gaming and experiences at home. Consumers could, for the first time, buy relatively polished VR systems. Meanwhile, mobile VR continued with products like the Samsung Gear VR and Google's new Daydream VR platform. By late 2016, hundreds of VR games and apps were available, and while adoption was modest, a true VR ecosystem had formed. 2016 Pokemon Go and AR craze. In mid-2016, Pokemon Go took the world by storm, bringing AR to hundreds of millions of smartphone users. This mobile game by Niantic let players hunt virtual Pokemon creatures overlaid on the real world through their phone camera. Seeing Pikachu pop up on your sidewalk was a delightful introduction to AR for the masses Pokemon Go's success. Over $1 billion in revenue in 2016 alone proved that AR could engage mainstream consumers outdoors, blending gaming with real locations. It also popularized concepts like using your GPS and camera for augmented experiences, leading many industries to consider gamification and location-based AR in their applications. 2017, AR development goes mainstream. Building on the Pokemon Go momentum, the major mobile platforms made big moves in AR. In 2017, Apple released AR-Kit for iOS, and Google released R-Core for Android software frameworks that allowed millions of existing smartphones to handle advanced AR, markerless tracking, surface detection, lighting estimation, etc. Suddenly, developers everywhere could create AR apps for a huge user base without specialized hardware. This led to an explosion of mobile AR apps, from virtual furniture placement, IKEA's AR app to visualize furniture in your home, to AR games, education, and marketing experiences. 2017 also saw the launch of Microsoft HoloLens to enterprise customers and developers, solidifying the mixed reality device category. 2018, Magic Leap and the continued AR hardware quest. After years of secrecy and hype, and over $2 billion in funding, Magic Leap released its first product, the Magic Leap 1 headset, in 2018. This AR headset, like HoloLens, projected digital 3D objects into the user's real space. However, upon launch, it met with lukewarm reviews criticism focused on its limited field of view, bulky external processing pack, and a price tag high above consumer level the Magic Leap. One's debut was a reality check for the AR industry, showing how challenging it remains to deliver compact, wide-view, high-quality AR. Despite the device's shortcomings, the push by companies like Magic Leap and Microsoft demonstrated confidence that wearable AR would be a major computing platform in the future. 2019 standalone VR and rise of Oculus Quest. VR hardware hit a new milestone in 2019 with the launch of Oculus Quest, the first successful standalone VR headset. The Quest did not require a PC or phone. Everything was built into the headset, yet it offered full 6 degrees of freedom tracking and decent graphics at an affordable $399 price point. The convenience and freedom of a wireless, self-contained device dramatically lowered the entry barrier for VR users. Quest became a hit, invigorating the consumer VR market with popular games and experiences, and proving that standalone devices could deliver quality VR. Also in 2019, Valve released the high-end Valve Index VR headset, known for its finger tracking controllers and ultra-crisp display. And Microsoft introduced the HoloLens 2 with a much improved field of view and comfort for enterprise AR clients. By the end of the 2010s, VR and AR had firmly established themselves with dedicated user bases, robust developer communities, and clearer use cases. Gaming and simulation for VR, training, visualization, and mobile entertainment for AR. The 2020 S towards Ubiquity and Convergence. 2020-2021, pandemic accelerates XR adoption. The COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 unexpectedly boosted interest in VRR for remote communication, training, and virtual events as people sought immersive ways to connect while physically apart. VR conferences and meetups became more common. In 2021, Facebook, which had grown Oculus into the market leader in consumer VR, made a pivotal move rebranding itself as Meta to signal a full commitment to building the metaverse. Meta announced plans to invest $10+ billion annually in AR/VR and release concepts for shared virtual worlds and avatars. This ignited massive discussion of the metaverse, with other tech giants like Microsoft, Nvidia, and Epic Games also promoting visions of 3D virtual platforms. The term metaverse, borrowed from 1992's Snow Crash, gained new life as the future of social media and work, underscoring how VR and AR might blend with everyday online life. 2023, WebXR and cross-platform experiences. By 2023, the technology to run AR/VR experiences directly in web browsers had matured. The WebXR standard allowed web developers to create XR content that could run on any device VR headsets, phones, or PCs via Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and other browsers. This meant users could enter a VR scene or AR interaction just by clicking a web link. Without installing special apps, companies began deploying virtual showrooms, product demos, and training simulations using WebXR, making immersive content more accessible. This advancement lowered distribution barriers and hinted at a future where XR is as ubiquitous and easy to access as the web itself. 2023. Apple Vision Pro and the spatial computing era. A milestone for AR happened in June 2023 when Apple unveiled the Vision Pro, its long-rumoured mixed reality headset shipping. In early 2024, the Vision Pro introduced spatial computing to Apple's lineup, a powerful headset with ultra-high resolution displays, sophisticated hand-eye tracking, and the ability to seamlessly blend virtual apps with the real world. While its $3,499 price and tethered battery pack made it a high-end, early adopter device, Apple's entry into XR was significant. The Vision Pro garnered praise for its technical feats, like super clear text rendering and intuitive gesture interaction, and lent credibility to the idea that AR/MR could be the next major computing platform. Its introduction has intensified competition among tech giants and is likely to spur a new wave of AR/MR software development, much as the iPhone did for mobile apps. 2024-2025, Convergence with AI and Future Outlook. As of 2025, AR and VR are converging with other emerging technologies. In particular, artificial intelligence is increasingly integrated into XR. AI enhances computer vision for AR object recognition and mapping, enables more natural language interaction with virtual agents, and can generate virtual environments or characters on the fly. Smarter AI-driven hand and eye tracking improves input in both AR and VR. For instance, AI-powered virtual assistants and realistic avatar representations in VR meetings are becoming more common. The industry is also focused on making AR/VR hardware lighter, cheaper, and more comfortable. Many predict that within a few years, glasses could replace smartphones for many tasks, and VR/MR headsets may become as prevalent as gaming consoles. According to the Gartner Hype Cycle, AR and VR are finally moving toward the plateau of productivity. In other words, steady mainstream adoption. Key factors for the future include continued advances in display tech for more lifelike visuals, wider 5G/6G connectivity for cloud-powered AR experiences, and rich content ecosystems to draw users in. Looking ahead, the history of AR and VR shows a pattern of visionary ideas followed by cycles of innovation and hype. From 16th century tricks of the light to 20th century flight simulators, from sci-fi dreams of cyberspace to today's metaverse ambitions, each decade brought these technologies closer to practical reality. Today's state-of-the-art, whether it's a surgeon using an AR headset to guide a procedure, an architect collaborating in a shared VR model, or a gamer exploring a fantastical VR world, is the result of many incremental advances over time. As AR and VR technologies continue to mature, they are poised to transform how we work, learn, play, and connect, blurring the lines between the real and the virtual like never before. The timeline above highlights how far we've come, and the coming years will surely add many more milestones to the story of augmented and virtual reality. Table: selected milestones in RVR history. Year: milestone significance. 1838. Wheatstone's stereoscope first 3D imagery, basis for VR displays. 1929. Link trainer flight simulator, early VR for pilot training. 1968. Sutherland's Sword of Damocles. But he first tracked VR AR headset. 1987. Jaron Lanier coins virtual reality, VR industry, and hype takeoff. 1990. Tom Caudle coins augmented reality. AR emerges as a distinct concept. 1992 virtual fixtures, USAF. First operational AR improves task performance. 1998 AR in NFL broadcasts, Yellow Line. AR proves useful to mass audiences. 2012 Oculus Rift, Kickstarter revival of modern VR momentum. 2016 Pokemon Geo, mobile AR, brings AR to mainstream audiences. 2023 Apple Vision Pro, mixed reality headset. Big Tech enters XR, setting new AR/MR standard. Each of these milestones, alongside many others detailed above, has contributed to the rich global tapestry of AR and VR history, a journey from imagination to implementation that continues to unfold.